Good. How are you? One of the students.
You think silence will be silent?
We'll see.
I'm doing it. I will tell you.
They have a hard time getting people that do screamers around us. I don't know why. Totally live there with screamers. Never bothered me. I kept waiting for it. Yeah, like in the middle of the scene. Don't know until here and there. Maybe he's not gonna say anything. Guess not.
No, because if anything breaks, everybody looks to you guys, so I'm gonna be far away from you.
Not bad.
Well, good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with our State of the Schools presentation here. Well, first of all, thank you for coming out. It's exciting to be back in person. Last year, because of COVID, we had to do this virtually, so it's wonderful to be back to present with you the state of the schools, the exciting accomplishments, and the work that we've been doing, not only this last year, but over the last few years. But before we begin, I think they're still out there. Let's give a round of applause to our phenomenal students and Mr. Heyer and our orchestra. If you don't know, on Friday we had an OMEA competition, and all of our groups that were in there got a 1, a superior rating, so that's par for the course, but phenomenal job again. So tonight, before we get started with the presentation and the program, just a few recognitions of people that are here with us tonight. Again, you know, one of the privileges I have is being on stage, sharing the work that we're doing, but we all understand that it takes a full team to do the great work that we're doing as a school district, and I'm just one piece of that larger team. So first of all, I want to recognize our board members that are able to be in attendance tonight, our President Richard Micco and our Vice President Laura Grozan, as well as board member Michelle Bissell. So please give them a round of applause and thank them for the work that they're doing for our district. Our treasurer, George Anagnostou. George and I have been together for 7 years. He's here tonight. He does a phenomenal job. We'll sing his praise. We'll hear from him in a little bit, and then we'll sing his praises and what him and his team do. So please give a round of applause for George and his treasurer's team. You know, the other part of this is again, we're not going to name everybody by name, but I know most of our administrative team is here tonight. I'm blessed to be in a district with a phenomenal administrative team to do the great work we're doing. So I just want to thank you personally for allowing me to be your superintendent, doing the work that we're doing together, and just thank you for being a part of the journey that we're on to make sure that we're doing everything possible for our students in Strongsville. And it goes beyond just our Strongsville City Schools team. We have built, at least in the last 10 years, some phenomenal partnerships with our city, whether it be with our chiefs of our safety services, our Mayor Persiak, and our council people. And we've got 2 council people here tonight, Jim Kaminsky and Tom Clark. So Jim and Tom and all of our council members, thank you for your support, your partnership. It truly is an honor to work with you, and strong schools, strong community, it makes a strong experience for all of our kids and our parents. I lost my mic. Test. There we go. Is it back on? All right, there we go. The light was still on. So once again, thank you to our city partners, and we look forward to our continued work together. You know, if you've seen State of the Schools before, I use these first few intro slides all of the time. It sets the destination where we're going, and we want to be a district of innovation and excellence. And what we want to do is get there not just to say we're innovative and we're excellent, but to do that for the benefit of our students, to continually challenge ourselves. And one of the things that obviously a couple of years ago we entered a pandemic, and we're still in the midst of it right now. But when we talk about excellence and innovation, it's something we always strive for. But the pandemic required us to rethink what education looked like and sounded like almost overnight. And so what our challenge is now is not just to look at what excellence and innovation looked like prior to the pandemic or during the pandemic, but to look at how do we continue moving that forward and keep that excellence and innovation as a part of our fabric moving forward every day in our school district. And we've talked a lot, the last 7 years I've been the superintendent here, we've said we want to be a premier district that ranks among the best in not only the region, but the state. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can measure that, but I want to share one that I think we should all be extremely proud of. There's a lot of measurements that go out there, whether it's state report cards or different rankings, but the U.S. News World Report, they do a ranking of high schools. They've actually started to do elementary schools and middle schools this year, but in the last 4 years, we've moved up 74 spots. We've moved up to, in the hundreds, in the low hundreds, to 41, and if you take a look at all the high schools in the state of Ohio, that ranks Strongsville High School in the top 5% of all high schools in the state. And I think that's something just to say, that's the great work that we're doing on a daily basis. Yes, it's measuring the high school, but it's a measurement of what we're doing from preschool on up in collaboration with our community. So, I feel like is it gone again? Yeah. Okay. All right. There. I don't know what levers we're hitting back there, but nothing. I can see Ray's hands up there. He's hitting nothing. So maybe some reason it's going in and out. But again, congratulations on the work that's being done there. So as we take a look at where we want to go, we want to be a premier district. We want to be innovative and excellent. We do this in a variety of ways. And this is really the outline of how we're going to focus on this evening. Ray, if there's a handout mic, I can get that.
It's in the podium.
I don't know. I'll put this here, and maybe that will. I do have to say, we practiced yesterday. And the sound was phenomenal, so the guys have done a great job trying to prepare for everything. All right, so what we want to do with our mission is we want to make sure that we're doing what we can to ensure all kids succeed. And we do that by hiring and developing a premier staff, teachers and staff. And we provide those experiences and outstanding facilities and with resources, and we do that in partnership with our community. And so tonight we're going to go through some of the highlights of what we're doing specifically in these areas. And so when we started the school year in convocation in August, we started with the theme of doing whatever it takes. Since that pandemic started, we did whatever it took to make sure we were meeting the needs of our students, no matter whether they were learning in our classrooms, at home, or in a blended format. And so when we take a look at that theme, we're going to look at what it means to do whatever it takes, from being great financial stewards of the tax dollars we're blessed with as a school district, how we're developing our lead learners, how we're providing professional development and growth opportunities for our teachers and staff, as well as providing supports for our students so that we can make sure we have a vibrant future for our kids. If I pause, there it comes back. For our kids and our school district. And so, nobody wants, I know, you know, everybody hears me do these speeches and presentations a lot, but nobody wants to hear me go on for about an hour. So I've invited some of my friends to help share the stage with me, and we've done that throughout videos, throughout the presentation tonight. So I will be sharing some intros and outros, and then some of my colleagues will be giving some great context in terms of what they're doing. And so let's start it off by taking a look at how we're doing whatever it takes as a school district to be great financial stewards. And so probably about 3 years ago at this time, I was at this stage, we had a lot more people in this auditorium at that time. We were struggling financially. We had just failed the November levy. I showed this graphic on the slide and said, this is our financial future if we don't get support from our community in terms of a new levy, which would have been the first new levy since 2007. And so the community answered our call, and in May of 2019, we changed that 38% positive rating or yes votes in November to 54% in just a few months. And that financial support, that support from our community changed our future to where we are today. And we had to go back, right? In November of 21, we went back to our community because we have a 5-year renewal levy and said, we need your continued support. We don't need new money at this time, but we just need you to continue to give us that vote of confidence, that support, to provide the financial backing for our school district, and they overwhelmingly said yes. And so when we take a look at our financial picture now from where we were deficit spending and going to run out of money by basically this school year, we now have a very different financial picture because of the continued support of our community. So as you take a look at this graphic, you can see this line item right here, revenue surplus over deficit. So what that line item is saying is right now in this school year, in fiscal year 2022, we are spending less than the revenue we're bringing in. So we are going to be able to add, based on George's budget and his forecast, at the end of this school year, we are going to be able to save $6 million. Now, when you take a look at this graph, we have to remember this is how levy funding works. That we pass a levy, it generates a certain amount of revenue, and that revenue basically remains flat throughout the life of the levy. And as we know, with everything we're going through in life right now, expenses go up, right? As a family, with groceries, with gas at the pump, whatever it may be, costs are going up. So we pass a levy, we get a higher revenue amount, our expenses go up, and eventually, as you can see, that cash, that revenue surplus over deficit continues to decline. And so when you take a look at the levy that was passed in May of 2019, started being collected in 2020, fully in 21, that's exactly where we should be. But we need your continued support. We can look at that revenue over expenditures, we can look at the cash balance with our levies and feel like we're in a great spot. But the community said a few years ago when we passed this levy, we want to tell you every so often, we want to vote, we want to tell you with our vote, are you doing a good job and are we going to continue to support the school district financially? And so we can see down here that when we have that renewal levy that was just passed, we're going to have another one in 2023. And if that renewal levy does not pass, you can start to see, instead of in 2026 having $1.5 million that we can add to the cash balance, we are going to have $8.2 million that we're going to deduct from that cash balance. So as you take a look at the school district financially over the next 5 years, what we're saying to our community is we are financially stable. We're not asking for increased revenue. We're asking you to continue to support the district at the same level of revenue we have, because with that, we are going to be able to not only meet our promise to the community of being financially stable through 26, 27, but exceed it. And you can see the difference without that levy support of what it means to our final balance. And so it's not just about thank you community for the levy, we're going to do the best we can. It's about what can we do each and every day to be great financial stewards of those dollars to help support and extend that as much as possible. So I'm going to turn it over to George to tell us what we've been doing to be great financial stewards and look at efficiencies to extend that money as far as possible.
Our district has worked to achieve financial stability with continued support from our community through at least the 2026-2027 school year and beyond. In addition to great community support, the district has continued to identify and implement efficiencies to be good financial stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. For example, the district joined a health consortium with neighboring school districts to lower healthcare administrative costs, implemented programs within the healthcare program to mitigate increasing insurance premiums, established a vendor marketplace to buy district supplies to ensure the lowest possible costs, maximizing investment opportunities to increase interest revenue, and refinance debt to save property owners money that directly reduce their tax bill.
I think it's basic 101 that if you manage your funds correctly, you will have the ability to use those funds for the greater good. As a parent of 3 in our district, financial stability is extremely important. My wife and I, financial stability allows for our children to have a little bit different education than some other districts. allows them to have different classroom offerings, allows them to have better technology, different extracurriculars offered. But when you talk about financial stability, you definitely have to talk about financial transparency. And that's one of the things that this district, the city of Strongsville, does fantastic. It gives us as taxpayers confidence that they are managing our funds the way that we would need them to help our children grow in their education. So I think when it comes to the financial stability and not having to go back to the taxpayers year after year asking for more money to help support the schools is something that is extremely valuable to our district.
All right. So one of the things we want to look at is it's not just about being great financial stewards. That's a huge piece of it, right? How can we continue to extend the dollars we have? How can we work with insurance, work with our maintenance staff to do things internally? How can we have a purchasing system that helps save us money? But it's also important to look at how do we compare to other school districts? And so one of the measures that we can compare to other school districts is per pupil expenditures. So if you take this look at this graph, these are neighboring school districts that people compare us to, similar school districts. And if you break this down, you can see that on average, this is last year 2020-21 data, that we spend roughly $14,000 per student. That's about $1,000 less than the average for this graph, and it's towards the bottom, which says that we are getting a great value for the level of success we're seeing at our as a district for our students at a great financial value. Another way we can look at this is let's take a look at the Strongsville Tax Rate. And we know whenever we talk about taxes, everybody says, we want to pay less taxes. But if we take a look at where Strongsville City Schools ranks in all 31 cities in Cuyahoga County, we rank 23rd. We rank lower than 70% of the other cities in our county, which means if I live in a $200,000 house in Strongsville, I take that same house to 23 other communities, I'm going to pay more taxes there than I do in Strongsville. So again, we're relying less on the community taxpayers and we're getting a great value for that. And another thing that I think is important to mention is when we get the blessing of the tax dollars from our community, we're always looking at how we can utilize it in the best interest of the taxpayer. So in 2012, the community passed an $81 million bond issue. We were able to do way more in terms of building this middle school, renovating high schools and preschools and transportations, putting secure vestibules on all of our buildings and doing much more. And then what we said is, hey, let's go to Moody's, who's a financial rater. Let's do a presentation. Let's see if we can increase our bond rating. And we increased our bond rating from AA3 to AA2. We went back to them and we're able to get from a AA2 to a AA2 with a positive outlook. That means when we go out to market, and George and his team did this, let's go out to market and try to refinance those bonds at a lower rate. So just like you would refinance your house and say, I'm going to go from a 4% interest rate to a 3% interest rate, we did that with millions of dollars of bonds. And because we were able to get a better interest rate, we actually this year, I think this is the first time I could ever say this as a superintendent, we reduced the tax bill of every homeowner in Strongsville by $500,000. And what that did in total is in that $81 million bond, we are going to save the taxpayers of Strongsville $14.5 million over the life of the bond. And so that's something to celebrate, that's something to be proud of, and that's something to give a round of applause to George and his team for the work that he's done. And so what that means is instead of just eating away at that balance and having the expenditures go up faster, we have a positive cash balance and we're not deficit spending at all in this forecast. And that means we continue to have a healthy cash balance, as I said earlier, to extend beyond our commitment to the community of 26-27. And so as we take a look at what we've done internally, as I said at the beginning, this is all about partnerships. So let's take a look and listen as to what community partnerships means to the finances and to the support of Strongsville City Schools.
The strength of any school system is directly correlated with the opportunities provided by the local community. Here in Strongsville, we're very lucky to have a community that offers direct opportunities to support our students in multiple ways.
So the mission of the Strongsville Athletic District is to be able to provide the student athletes the premier experience. And what we do is we do our fundraisers, both to raise money for the boosters, so we allocate the funds as we see fit and as the needs of the team. I also have the teams do their own fundraisers, so they can support their own trips to, say, Florida, basketball tournaments. And one of the things that is one of my most favorite things to do is actually be able to sponsor what we call team success. So if the kids qualify for any state meet, we can help pay for the bus down to soccer, we can pay for the hotels or meals, be able to help them, I guess, have a great experience in their trips. Proud to say that we have so many different organizations that come together to be able to really help kids have a good experience through their high school careers.
Community involvement's always been vitally important to me. I think that it creates a strong bond not only between the community and the schools, but between parents and students if those parents are involved. And involvement in Strongsville Education Foundation provides an opportunity to create those strong bonds between the schools and the community.
So for parents, being part of the school means that the school and the family are intertwined. We get to care about everything from beginning to end and be part of everything. We get to see the behind the scenes, we get to see the performances, and we get to watch our children grow from the inside. So it's just a beautiful partnership for us to get to be right here in the school with them.
Basically, the Strongsville Metal Boosters is here to support the students, the directors, and the families of the Strongsville Music Program, okay? And it's basically the trinity, the parents, the students, and the directors. With that, us three working together, we are able to have an award-winning program, nationally recognized and win multiple state programs because of the teamwork that we have.
The more parents we can have involved with our PTAs in our schools, I think it's the best experience we could possibly give. Over the years, I've loved to meet all the parents and grandparents and all family members of the kids that we see at school. The kids love to see the parents there. It makes a better experience for everybody. It helps them reach their goals better. The teachers also really like when the parents are involved. It helps them to hit their goals for a learning experience for the kids. So overall, if we have more community and parent involvement, we just reach our goals better as a PTA and as a school district in general.
So obviously it's about a tremendous amount of partnerships, and I typically don't read during these presentations, but one of our counselors shared with me some of the support that we're getting outside of the organizations we just talked about. So just to share with you, this is just this year from one building, the Strongsville Giving Project that provided families with holiday gifts. Strongsville Kiwanis that adopted families over the holidays, donated materials for memory bags and school supplies. The First Lutheran Church of Strongsville provided Thanksgiving baskets and holiday gifts. St. Joseph Ministry of Assistance donating food for families that were out of work due to COVID. America's Best Eye Care for eye exam frames and lenses for students that are unable to purchase eyewear. O'Charlie's Raising Cane's, Culver's, Condado Tacos, Papa John's for donating prizes and foods to the school. The Strongsville Police Department for working with one of our buildings for Shop with a Cop. And the Strongsville Church of Christ for providing Kids Hope to our school district. So that's just a brief list of the wonderful community that we live and work in that supports our students. And so when we talk about those strong community partnerships and what that means for financial stewardship, it's also important to look at, I can sit up and I always say this, I can sit up here and stand and tell you how wonderful we're doing as a school district, but I think the ultimate test is what are outside groups or outside organizations saying about our finances. So in terms of George and Nick as assistant treasurer and the team, over the past 5 years, George and his team have been awarded with the Association of School Business Officials Budget Award. They've got the CAFR, which is Excellence in Financial Reporting. Another organization, the Government Finance Officers Association, gave another award for financial reporting. And just recently, George was recognized in one of our board meetings for the Auditor of State Award for the 3rd straight year. And just to kind of give perspective, and George, I can see you out there, so correct me if I'm wrong. I think the auditor said when it came, only about 4% of school districts in the state of Ohio get this recognition. So it's something special, and it's due to the diligence that George and his team provide, and we're able to be as financially stable as we are because of his great work. So again, let's give a round of applause to George. So as you can see, all that we've done to do whatever it takes financially to make sure that the district is in one of its strongest financial positions that it's been in recent history. We take that same dedication and passion and energy and put that into growing our lead learners, which is our staff. This is a book that I read this summer called Think Again, and what the book talks about is that when we go into an experience, we need to think like a scientist, right? So as adults, we go through life and we've seen this, we've done this, we've had this experience, and we're just going to go to the playbook and kind of go through how we know we're going to address it. The thing again challenges us to think like a scientist, to kind of think, what's my hypothesis? Let's gather information, let's gather data, let's test it out, let's learn from what we did, and let's repeat that cycle and try to get better every time. This is what our teachers and our staff and our administrators did every single day over the last 2 years. Is we had to think again as to what education is going to look like for our kids, not just to get through a pandemic, but what it needs so that we're building a school system that's not focused on our past, that's focused on their future. And so when we take a look at all the challenges we've been through, we've worked through different learning environments with kids blended, with kids remote, with kids in person. We've had to deal with how do we educate students when we can't put them together in groups and we've got to keep them socially distanced. We've dealt with an endless situations with masks. And are we wearing masks? Are we not wearing masks? When are we wearing masks as a part of the school day? And as a classroom teacher, kids are in school, they're out of school, dealing with quarantines and isolations. But through all of that, we were able to keep a focus on really what we're all about as a learning organization, which is about how are we going to provide deeper learning experiences for our students so that they can find meaning and value and be ready for their future. And so what I want to talk about first as we talk about growing a learning culture within the adults in Strongsville City Schools is that blue section of the graphic about what are we doing to truly develop a deep understanding of the content that we teach so that we can provide rigorous learning experiences for our students in the classroom. And so let's take a look at what professional development starts with in our school district.
So as a school district, we always believe that learning and growing is not only important for our students, but our staff as well. This year, we've been able to be very strategic and targeted, gathering feedback and input from our teachers and staff into the professional development that they truly need that's going to help them get better.
So one of the things I love about these videos is watching the people that know they're going to talk and seeing the reaction as they know their piece is going to come up. But what we did in terms of what Jenny introduced in our professional development is we felt it was very important as an organization this year to develop a system. To develop a system for how are we going to support all kids in our school district, whether it be social emotionally, academically, or behaviorally. And so when we think about this, goals help us achieve an outcome. Systems are the process that lead us to that goal we're trying to achieve. And so when we take a look at this graphic, what this is saying is in the middle is that our main focus is obviously on teaching, learning, and assessment, whether that's related to academics or behavior. And if we get really good at providing great academic and learning experiences in the classroom, if we get really good at addressing students' needs proactively, whether they be social, emotionally, behaviorally, or academically, we can get in this top tier, this universal tier, where 80% plus of our kids can find success just in that universal environment. And then what we can look at is how do we support those students that need more? And 10 to 15% of our students, they may need some additional reteaching. They may need some additional targeted support, small group interventions or supports. And what are we going to do to support them? And then obviously 5 to 10% of our students that may need that intensive, more individualized instruction, how are we going to provide that system for them so they can find success in their unique and personalized learning pathway? And so when we look at those outer circles, we took a look at it as a district and said, for professional development, what aspects do our staff need to develop some capacity? Where are we either enhancing it or we're at the foundational level where they need to learn and grow? And that's where we're going to focus today, to highlight 3 of the areas that we've spent a lot of time and focus and professional development with our staff this year. So let's start off with our elementary curriculum supervisor, Amy Pinney, telling us a little bit about what we've done with academic content standards and assessments.
Through collaboration, our staff has focused their efforts on standards, instruction, and assessment. They've made tremendous strides in deepening their understanding of content and effective teaching strategies to reach all learners. We have also developed common assessments to measure student growth throughout the year, and this increased focus has helped build opportunities for student success.
our standards are what we basically, it's kind of like our guidelines of how we teach your children. Each grade level has their own set of standards for every subject area, but it's just a way to kind of make sure, okay, in kindergarten you're learning this, by first grade you're learning this, so that we're not overlapping to the point where I should be teaching a second grade skill even though I'm a fourth grade teacher. So it's just a set of standards that kind of set us up kind of like a little foundational blueprint per se, but then it just kind of keeps us all focused on what we need to do by the end of a school year in order to get them ready for the following school year in the next grade level. I think going through the process and being able to work with grade levels both below and above you has allowed those conversations to happen, especially when we look at our standards and we look at our state assessments and we say, okay, we're a little weaker in a certain topic or area, we're able to talk with the grade level below saying, how do you teach it, or what can I do to support the grade level above? And I think it allows us to take a step back and realize that we are all really a big team working for the grade level kind of above and setting those foundational skills, and each person is kind of playing a part.
Naturally, we're reluctant to change, but we put our best foot forward when we stay optimistic. We can do some really good things and make some great learning outcomes for students, and just by trying and trial and error. And then we can take that same work, we can introduce it to our colleagues, and we can say, hey, these are the successes that we're having. Give it a try. And most likely, typically, they'll give it a try and find some good things. Vertical alignment is important because it can help us create a flow and a balance. And that when students transfer up to the next grade, they're experiencing things that are similar to what they experienced before. So we're kind of scaffolding them, and we're building off what they already know. Taking the time to actually dig deep and look at our standards. And that's important when we take those skills and incorporate them into lessons. When we're talking to parents, and we can promote that same discussion and make an even bigger impact through collaboration from our parents.
So I just want to compliment Aaron Green, who's our Director of Curriculum, and Amy and their entire team, and all of our principals that have led this work at the building level. Our teachers have a phenomenal understanding of our content standards. They're experts in what they do each and every day, but this work has provided the opportunity for them to have the time and space and collaboration to really dig into not just what needs to be taught at their grade level, but as Heather and Josh shared, what needs to be taught at the grade level before and what needs to be taught at the grade level after. So we can move beyond Unit 3 in the textbook says I need to teach double-digit multiplication to truly what is the pathway and the alignment of what our students need to know so we can get to that level of deeper learning for our kids. So as we take a look at pre-K to 12, we've been working on our standards and throughout the school year as we've had those asynchronous days and professional development days, developing those skills within our teachers. We've also targeted in on our primary grades and elementary grades in developing an understanding of how students learn how to read. Now, for those of you that have been through a variety of reading programs, right, it's changed, the philosophy and approach has changed, but this truly is, as it says, the science of reading. And so let's take a look at what our teachers are experiencing in this training throughout the school year.
Our district continues to develop opportunities for our teachers and staff to enhance their classroom instruction. We're excited to have started a multi-year professional development series to provide specialized literacy training. These in-services provide additional skills and knowledge to our kindergarten through third grade teachers and specialists in order to help them continuously grow the literacy skills of our youngest learners.
We're always looking for awesome opportunities for professional development, and our district has heard us, and they are hitting us right where we want to be with professional development like letters training. As a matter of fact, Steve Owens got us so excited that I immediately went ahead and signed up for professional development on my own to kind of learn a little bit more, to get more training and experience with it so that I can have a full understanding and just embrace letters training and the science of reading to its fullest.
The letters training we received from Steve Owens was fantastic. His enthusiasm and knowledge are both very infectious, and he left us with some things we can implement in the classroom immediately, as well as some long-term learning goals and what the future holds for our specific classrooms as well as the district. It exposed a lot of the gaps in my own knowledge, so as soon as I fill those gaps, I'll be better equipped to teach the students in my classroom and help them grow.
how rewarding is that to hear Corey say about being reflective on the training and be able to see where the gaps are in his teaching, and to be able to fill those and to be better serving our students. And you heard a gentleman's name throughout the presentation. His name's Steve Owens, and Steve Owens is one of our literacy coaches. And if you hear the feedback, this training was going on today in our office, and he was literally on a chair. I think he was popping and locking. That's what he said he was doing on the chair up there. But he gets people engaged, he gets people excited, and really, you know, we've all been to trainings and professional developments, but teachers want more. They want when the next section is going to be there, and it's fundamentally changing how we're teaching reading to our youngest learners. That's going to provide not only benefits in our primary grades, but benefits for our students throughout their entire schooling. So we've talked about, remember that pyramid, we've talked about those multi-tiered systems of support, and I made mention that we're focusing academically to support our students, and this year we're focusing on professional development that's going to develop the capacity of our teachers with academic content standards. We're working at the secondary level right now with developing meaningful assessments, as well as developing an understanding of the content standards and the literacy of reading. But let's go to that kind of other side, which is that behavioral side. And what are we doing to provide the skill development of our students to make positive behavior support or choices through our PBIS program?
So here in Strongsville, we're focusing on positive behavior interventions and supports, PBIS. So what we're doing is, it's an awesome program for celebrating our student successes. So staff, students, we're going to get the community involved. What we're doing is really focusing on behaviors that students are doing well, and it's a really cool opportunity for our students to create like caring mindsets and just like lasting relationships. And we're really excited about how it's going.
This is something recently new that we've been doing here in Strongsville, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to teach kids prevention rather than punishment. So we're trying to really give them the support that they need, teach them those expected behaviors, have a lot of repetition with practicing those expected behaviors within explicit lessons that we do in the building, to hopefully be able to give them those supports that they need to be able to show those positive behaviors eventually on their own without the supports from the staff. We're being a support system for students. And I think it's the same for staff. I think now more than any time, staff needs to feel supported as well. So with PBIS, we've been doing a lot with our staff where, you know, with our PBIS committee, we have many members who are a part of those conversations. And so they're really taking pride and ownership in the things that we're doing in our buildings. And so I think because of that, it helps them to feel more excited and motivated to come to work each day because they're seeing the benefits within their classroom.
One of the things we're looking for with our students as they transition from the middle school to the high school is for them to self-advocate. As they go from the middle school to the high school, one of the big challenges we see is the students at the middle school, parents advocating for them, whether they need help in school, communicating with teachers, and when they come up to the high school, we're really pushing through PBIS, having the students be the ones that advocate for themselves so they build relationships with teachers, guidance counselors, assistant principals, coaches, and everybody in that way. So often we point out the wrongs with students that's going on, that you're not doing this right, you're not doing that right. And PBIS really encourages student behavior in a positive manner, and you really look for the good. It's really finding the positive in what they're doing and then building that culture, and everyone's trying to recognize it and see it. So students really get into it with each other, get into it with teachers, and it's really raised the level of behavior throughout our high school this year so far.
So I really like what Lou said there at the end. We're really focusing on the good that kids are doing, right? And we always use the example, if we had a student that was struggling in math, what would we do? We would provide them the support to develop the skills necessary so they could be successful in math. Behavior is no different. If we have kids that are struggling behaviorally, we need to explicitly teach and develop the skills so they can be successful behaviorally. So the PBIS is a program that we've had in our district for some time now. But it's something that we are bringing. We've brought consultants in to work with us. Andy Trujillo and his department have worked on leading these efforts. We've done analysis of what we're doing. We've got teams and plans at every building looking at how we can evolve PBIS to the next level. And so typically or traditionally, this has been a very strong program at our preschool and elementary level, and they're continuing to enhance that. But I want to commend our high school and our middle school for the work that they've done to truly embrace PBIS And Jessica and Tina and Jamie and the whole high school team, but especially Eric and Drew, I know they've taken the lead, as well as Susan and Sean and Bill supporting those efforts to really bring that to life. And as Lou said, from the high school, and I know is the case at the middle school, there's a newfound energy about building a positive culture in those buildings, and that's because of those efforts. So proud of the work that they've done for our students. And so as we take a look at what our teachers and what our staff saying about the work that we're doing, this is one from one of our elementary teachers talking about the standards work, that this time, this space and collaboration has really allowed them to get in there and break down the standards to truly understand what students need to learn so that they can use evidence-based strategies in that lesson design process to help kids reach that greater depth of knowledge and make learning more meaningful for them. As we take a look at the secondary level, one of our high school teachers talked about when we allowed them the time to spend on their assessments, it was invaluable. And I want to highlight the last comment there. We've moved from a day and age where, not that it's not important to memorize, you need to memorize some stuff. But information when we went to school, and information when kids go to school now is readily available at an instrumental level. We don't need kids to simply be able to learn and recall and regurgitate facts. We need them to be able to understand, to apply it to a new situation, and that's what our teachers at the high school are able to do. They truly have a great level of understanding of their standards. They know at what level kids are supposed to know in the progression of their learning, and they're creating meaningful assessments that lead to deeper learning because we're assessing what kids, what their ability is to not just know and tell facts, but to understand and apply it to new situations. And then as we take a look, as we said, about the letter training, phenomenal results, or phenomenal feedback on our letter training with Steve Owens. And we've got teachers up, we've got teachers being active participants in their learning. And you would think, when you start talking about, Aaron, I think the first session is about brain research, right? And how the brain works to learn and how to read. When you have a 2-day session on how the brain works to learn how to read, and you have feedback like this, like I could have gone another 2 days with Steve learning about this so I could apply it to my classroom. We've got Christy Riley, she was so inspired, she's taking her own class to be able to learn more. That's the impact we're having in terms of our adults and growing a learning culture so that ultimately we could be better for our students. And so as we take a look back at this pyramid, what this means for us is when we get really good at standards, when we get really good at our instructional practices and lesson designs, and we have meaningful assessments that feed how students are doing and provide evidence of impact about how our kids are progressing, we are able to see more kids find success in that universal tier and less kids struggle or need targeted or intensive support. So kind of concluding what the theme of tonight of doing whatever it takes, let's take a look at a few aspects of what we're doing as an organization this year to support our students through a variety of pathways. So as we take a look at this graphic once again, we took a look at what it means to have rigorous content standards. But let's take a look at that top light green piece, which is more about what are the skills outside of the content that we want our students to develop so that they can be successful citizens. And so one of the things that Jenny led over the past few years was the development of our portrait of a graduate. We call it our Model Mustang. It's our 13-year commitment to our community and our students and our parents that not only do we want to have a premier educational experience where we're developing the knowledge that kids need to be successful, but we're developing the skills so that they can be good, productive citizens, whether they're going from high school and going right into career, whether they're going to college, or whether they're going into the military. And so these 5 skills of being innovative, collaborative, resilient, having a global mindset, and empowered are the skills that we think are foundational as our kids move into their future. So let's take a look at how we're developing these skills through a variety of pathways to meet the needs of the whole child. And let's start out with technology.
Our world is always changing, and as tech coaches, our goal is to continue to help teachers in every building incorporate new technology into their classroom, which will lead to learning opportunities that benefit all students.
This is an Autobot. You have to make a nice thick line so it can see the line, and then you do division problems. If we want to do that pattern, we'd have to come up with division problems that equal that number to make the Autobot do that pattern. It makes math easier. The Autobot gets to solve the problems. And it looks like I'm a mathematician kind of because we choose what codes we want to put, and we do the division problems. And it's kind of fun to make the codes and stuff. So the app, basically, you just click on, let's just say, this one is 1/4 of what? What it means is you cannot compare this to this if you are cutting it into 4 pieces, because one piece of this is obviously bigger than one piece of this. So if you want to compare them in fraction form, you would have to have them same size.
Pear Deck helps students interact with each other through a platform that is kind of like Google Slides, but it's also more interactive and the teacher can share all the answers with everybody. Pear Deck has helped me by when I'm in math, if I get a question wrong, I can see how they do the correct answer and how they choose which answer is better.
Pear Deck is a more fun way to learn than just a sheet of paper in front of you. You can be more interactive. So in art class, they'll ask a question and then you can move a dot and you can see other people's answers. And if you get it wrong, it'll show you the answer and it'll explain it. I always thought we would use Pear Deck just for math and ELA, but I found out you can use it in multiple subjects like art class and gym.
Well, I've used a lot of the equipment here. I especially have used the laser engraver for a lot of different personal projects, and also in my engineering classes, I've used that to build prototypes for different projects that we've been working on as well. Well, I think this has been a very nice thing to have, especially here, having it be free for everyone. And also, I think it's really helped because I've learned how to use the software. It's really helped me, enhance my creativity and come up with new things that I may have in my mind that I can model it and print it or laser cut it so I can see a physical prototype and actually use it.
Well, the makerspace allows for me to create the interests in my mind and kind of make them into realities. If I'm interested in a math puzzle or chemistry, I can make a molecule of dopamine and send that off to be 3D printed, and I can use that later on in life for when I'm studying in medicine, being able to create 3D designs that I can print and then have physical copies to study off of.
The assignment I had to do was make an animal, a hybrid. So I picked a bear and a monkey, and I had to write about it. I had to write a short story in it, and then I had to create a model, and I chose to do 3D print. I think it made it more memorable because I had to learn everything myself. And it's something to look back at, and I think it's cool because it glows in the dark.
I mean, how cool is that? You write a story about a bear monkey and you could actually 3D print it out, or using Ozobots to solve math problems, or as we talked about with the Pear Deck, that you're able to technologically interact and get constant feedback from our students. So one of the things that Dave Binkley and his team continue to work on is how do we integrate technology, not just as a cool tool, but as a meaningful enhancement to student learning, and I think we've had some phenomenal examples from our students there. So as we talk about how we're supporting our students and supporting them academically with technology, the other part that we need to support our students with is supporting the whole child and understanding that our kids come to us with needs that are not just academic, that there's behavioral needs, there's social emotional needs, there's mental health needs, and as a school district, we have seen those needs exponentially increase in recent years, and we've taken that as a charge for how can we provide those supports to help our families and to help our kids get the support that they need. So I'm going to turn it over to Andy and some of his team members to share what we're doing.
Our students are dealing with different challenges and stressors than when you and I went to school. It is vital for not only their learning but overall growth and development that we continue to provide mental health and social emotional supports and resources for all of our kids.
So Strongsville is that close-knit community that helps focus on the entire child. Programs and organizations that we partner with, like the Strongsville Giving Project, as well as Kiwanis, where they find different ways to find support for students that are happening inside of school that extends to also outside of the school place as well. They're gaining experiences that they wouldn't necessarily always have. They're finding out that this is a community that actually cares about them, that wants to make sure that they're taken care of, that they're not missing out on different opportunities because they may not have, or they've had a difficult situation that they had to go through. So what we're really gaining with these resources is like a full, complete experience.
With the supports in place, students gain a better awareness and gain skills to manage intense emotions, which then help them in a classroom setting. I've also seen kids gain a lot of confidence to be able to communicate and vocalize their needs, their feelings, and then feel more like they have control over their thoughts, their feelings, and their actions, which helps. Confidence is everything, and then this transfers over into the classroom when it comes to their academics.
So in the 7 years I've been superintendent, we've done a tremendous amount of work to help support in this area, and I want to thank the Board of Education for their support, for allowing us to do the work that we've done. 7 years ago, we had a lot fewer guidance counselors at the elementary level. We had 3 that were split between 5 buildings. Now we have an elementary guidance counselor in every building. We had no social workers in our district to provide wraparound services and supports for our kids in school and our families at home. We now have 2 social workers in our school district. We had challenges with families being able to get the clinical counseling, therapy, and support that our kids needed. So we partnered with Nancy Lowry and Associates and brought them into our schools. And now students are able to get their clinical-based counseling and therapy during the school day so that they're getting the help and the support that they need. And this goes beyond the groups and the classroom lessons that our school counselors are doing across the district. So the level of support that we're able to provide to our students continues to grow and evolve as their needs grow and evolve, but I'm proud of the work that we've done to help support them. One of the joys I have in my job, in whatever role I've had, is this idea of starting with the concept, starting with the need, starting with an idea, whether it's mine or somebody else's, it doesn't matter, but growing it and developing it and implementing it and seeing it develop so that you know that you've got something that's going to have a long-lasting impact and meaningfully change the life of a child. And so that's what we did with our career exploration program. Rich, I don't know, it was probably, 4 years ago? 3-4 years ago, we were sitting in my office. We started a business advisory council. We had our business partners around the table. And we said, hey, we've got this group of students at the high school that they're going to graduate, and really they don't have a pathway. They're not engaging in our college preparatory program. They're not engaging in our career preparatory program or going to Polaris. They're going to graduate, and we're not sure where they're going to go and if they're going to have gainful employment and find success. So what are we going to do about it? So we started with this idea of how do we develop this cohort of students and develop the skills that they need so that they can be successful no matter what their pathway is after high school. And we didn't do that because we thought it was a great idea or it was some flavor of the month, but we did that because that's what our business community is asking for. Our business community is saying, we need kids that graduate, whether it's through this pathway I just described or just in high school in general. We need students that are great problem solvers, that can work in teams, that are great communicators and critical thinkers. So as we think about all the work we do, again, math, science, social studies, the arts, it's all extremely important to create a well-rounded child. But if we graduate students that have that knowledge but don't have the skills to work with others and effectively communicate, then we're failing our students. And so that's how we link in our model Mustang in terms of if we want kids that are problem solvers, they need to be innovative thinkers. They need to be able to collaborate. They need to be resilient when they hit those roadblocks. They need to think outside of the bubble that they may socialize or live within and have a global perspective. And they need to be empowered to have the ability to think, design, create, and implement what they come up with. And so we created this idea of a career exploration program because the way that we are preparing students in the future we're preparing them for is different. When you and I know everybody in this room, so when you and I went to college or went into career or went into the military, we really were in that top line. We learned a skill, we got a job, and we applied that skill over and over to get the outcome that we wanted to get. Whether we were manufacturing, whether we were managing teams, whether we were educating students. As we take a look at the workforce now, it's not just about learning to do, it's about learning to learn. This is one of our strategies that we're teaching our kids in elementary school right now that Amy and Aaron just worked on metacognition. How are we teaching kids to think about their thinking, to learn, because when they get out in the workforce, it's not any longer I have this skill and I'm just going to replicate it for the next 30 years. It's I have this skill, but I have to consistently apply that skill, learn more, evolve it, so that I can increase my capacity as an employee or increase the capacity of our business, and whatever the outcome now is the byproduct instead of the goal. And so to do that, to support our students in the pathway, to build the skills necessary to be in the workforce, and to develop that mindset of learn, do, and evolve, we created a cohort starting with sophomores. Identifying sophomores that were looking for a career pathway, that maybe had the credits but needed some specific targets and interests, and we would put them in a 2-year program starting with their junior year, where they would prioritize some of their career interests, do some field experiences, seeing what may be out there, and then being able to apply the knowledge and skills that they've learned in workplace experiences in their senior year. So let's turn it over to Susan and some of our other team members at the high school that are seeing this program in place.
The Career Exploration Program is designed to enhance students' personal, academic, intellectual, and technical skills through learning experiences in which they have real-world connections between school and work.
Career exploration pathway is allowing students to kind of find their talent. We kind of have an idea of what these students are good at, some of their skills and their talents. Currently we have 13 students. Next year we're looking for probably to double that, 24 to 25 students. So we're working on social skills, improving some of those communication skills that they already do pretty well with. The idea is that we will help them identify some areas that they're interested in the community, so career exploration, and then we'll try and match them up with someone in their senior year where they can go kind of experience what it's like to work in that field. The group that we have now, we have 13 juniors, and they quickly bloomed into this really cohesive group. Everybody comes with their own unique skill set, and peers kind of learn best from each other. Everything is kind of individualized, right, to kind of take their successes and then have them flourish. I knew that I wanted to be a teacher when I was in probably like 5th grade, but most people aren't sure, and they have a whole slew of venues that they could take, right? Different jobs that they could take. And so it provides guidance and connections. And I think, especially now in our 2022, everything is about networking and developing those skills to promote yourself and sell yourself. So this is a perfect opportunity for them to do that.
It's praying for what you want to do, your dreams, and it's helping you get there and finding the ways that you want to get there. It helps solidify what you want to do, and it's helped me out so much, clear up visions in my head of what I want to do, and it's really cleared up the pathway pretty much.
So as you take a look at students like Jaleel or the other 12 students that are in the class, Matt, last time we met, Matt and Kim Swiger are the teachers that have taught this junior cohort, and they told the story about when the students first got together, they came to class, they sat separately, kind of had their hoods up, slumped over, nobody really talking to each other, and just the transformational change that they've seen. The hoods are down, the heads are up, they're engaging, they've built a classroom community to now we're in the process of recruiting for this next cohort, and guess what they wanted to do? We want to be there and present. We want to be a part of the interviews. We want to get more kids to be a part of this program because of the change that it's had on them. And now what we're preparing for is how do we build those mentor opportunities and those partnerships so that they can go out in the workforce and find their own unique pathway moving forward. So I'm very proud of the work that our team has done to bring this idea to life. One of the things that we talk about and kind of wrap up this section of what we've done to support our students, and you took a look at our cash balance earlier in the financial presentation. The reason we're able to do some of the things we've done is school districts around the state have gotten federal funding, right? If you've heard ESSER fundings, we've got federal dollars for how we can support our students based on needs addressed or that have arisen from the pandemic. And we put those finances back into really two areas. How can we help support and develop the capacity of our staff? And how can we directly support our students? So when you take a look at these two columns, this is how we're using those funding sources to help support our kids in a variety of ways, whether it's reading specialists or math coaches, or MTSS is a fancy word for saying, how are we going to support students that are not finding success academically or behaviorally in the classroom, whether it's more administrative support, explicit support for our gifted learners, those counselors and social workers we've talked about. We've added an intervention specialist at every building this year to provide targeted supports to gaps that our students may have with disabilities because of the pandemic. We have a special education coach where we're developing the capacity of our intervention specialists and added extracurriculars at the elementary level, kept a virtual learning program going, and even supported our musicians with adding band at the 6th grade level on an everyday basis instead of every other day to close the gap for students that may not have got that full instrumental experience last year. So again, not only how we're developing our teachers, but supporting our students through a variety of ways so that they can get the most out of their education here in Strongsville City Schools. So what I want to do, typically at this we do a Q&A. We asked some of our families, instead of doing that live this year, that we would have people submit some questions about what's on their mind with what's going on in the school district. So there's a few questions that we wanted to share and provide those answers to as we kind of get close to the end of this evening. So one of the questions that came in is, what's the future of our elementary schools? Will we eventually get one super elementary? So I want to highlight a couple of our staff members and then a member of our Facilities Development Committee to kind of prep for this question.
The custodial and maintenance staff throughout our district take great pride in keeping our buildings and grounds safe and running efficiently.
We've grown. We now have 11 guys. We have 3 assistants and 8 maintenance guys, including myself. The skill set is amazing. The work ethic is amazing. We are able to do things that I always put us above every other school district. We're doing jobs that they would have to outsource just because of the skill and because of the guys' work ethic and wanting the pride in wanting to do it. And we take great pride in it. Most of the stuff we do, you'll never see. And that's, kind of hard on your ego, I guess, a little bit, but it's what we do, and that's how we do it. And if you don't know about it, it's probably good.
So one thing that we've started to look at this year is the status of our elementary schools, looking at the age of the buildings, what's necessary, what's going to be necessary as far as renovation, what's necessary to keep them up with technology, safety, all of those things. One of the things that we've recommended now is to do an enrollment study and to look at the changes that are going to be occurring projected into our district. Along with the enrollment study, the district plans on providing avenues for community feedback and getting a wider range of the community involved in the process.
So as we take a look where we're going in the future with our elementary schools, it's important to learn and listen to what Paul and Keith both said, because if you take a look at our elementary buildings, they look like they're in great shape for being as old as those buildings are, because we have a phenomenal custodial staff and a phenomenal maintenance team. But the reality is all of those buildings are 60+ years old. And what is in the best interest of student learning does not match what was in the best interest of student learning in 1960s versus 2022. And so what we're doing, as Kristen shared, is we're starting to do a couple studies. We've got an enrollment study that's going on right now that's going to take a look at what is the future enrollment in Strongsville City Schools, because if you've been to any of our elementary schools, we are close to capacity at nearly all of them. And so we've got to take a look at what is going to be that growth rate. We went from having about 20 or 25 new students enroll every year in the district for probably about the last 5 or 6 years, to this past year we've had over 100 students enroll. And so if we keep that pace, and we've got a few new developments that are coming online that students will come to Strongsville City Schools, we've got to be able to project that. So when we look at our building and where buildings are going to be, we have that data. The other thing that we're doing is we are going to start engaging in community conversations or community opportunities where parents and community members can provide feedback as to what they would like to see in future elementary schools. Now, I'm not talking specifically at this point, what do we want the room design to be? Do we want collaborative spaces? Where do we want a full gym? Things of that nature. What we're talking about is that last question. Will we eventually get a super elementary school? And the reason I think this person asked this question is if you take a look at North Royalton and a couple other school districts around, that is the trend now in construction, right? We're going to consolidate the series of elementary schools into one larger elementary. The answer to that question is I don't know. We have to get community feedback to say, do we want to stick with community schools like we have across our district? Do we want one large elementary school? Do we want to go to bandit schools, where bandit schools means we have a building that's a K-1 building, we have a building that's a 2-3 building, a building that's a 4-5 building? We're really going into it with an open mindset and wanting to hear from our communities and families to determine what the future of our elementary buildings will be. So be on the lookout. Probably in the next few months, we'll start engaging in that conversation. For those of you that are looking for a timeline, is when is the district really going to look at building new elementary schools? That's still a few years away. We're working with we have a board facilities development committee, as Kristen represents. We're working on a timeline of when we think that is going to be an opportunity we're going to explore, but we want to collect and share the information, get the information from the parents at this point. The last piece I'll talk about in the elementary schools, the OFCC, which is a statewide organization that comes in and analyzes your buildings to say, should you replace them or should you renovate them, has said, for our 5 elementary buildings, we should replace Whitney, Sarrar, and Chapman, and we should renovate Moraski and Kinsman. And so that's kind of the roadmap of what we want to take a look at moving forward. You know, one of the questions that was asked is what is the district doing with regard to bullying and student behavior? So I don't want to be redundant. I did want to honor the question that was asked, but we shared in the slides of what we're doing with positive behavior interventions and supports. What I want to clarify is even though PBIS is a pre-K to 12 program, it is not simply about teaching replacement skills or teaching skills for students to behave better or simply handing out rewards for good behavior. It's balanced with teaching students and supporting students through consequences as well. So as a school district, we still utilize consequences, but we utilize those consequences as a way that are teachable moments rather than just discipline. And so when we take a look at bullying is repeated actions, repeated behaviors that are happening from a group or an individual to another student. So one of the challenges we have as a school district, especially in today's day and age, is a lot of bullying will happen outside of school on social media platforms. And as a school district, there's Supreme Court rules that are very clear that if things do not happen in school or do not influence school in extreme ways, that we do not have the authority to address them with any school-based consequences. It doesn't mean we don't do anything about it. What it means is we call the families and tell them what's going on. We intervene. We get our school counselors to support, our administrators to support. But sometimes our parents are asking us to provide consequences or discipline when we don't have the authority to do so if it's not happening in school and is not having a direct and clear negative effect at school, and the level of a negative effect is severe from the courts. The other thing that I would ask our parents that are watching is please communicate with us. We have an anonymous reporting system. You got to give us your kids' names so we can investigate, but you can use that. Call your administrator, call your principal. Unfortunately, sometimes we find out after frustrations have boiled over, and we find out that things have been happening for some time. So we are addressing bullying significantly with not only teaching the skills, providing counseling when needed, working with the families, and consequences when appropriate, but we are also asking you to partner with us in supporting that communication pathway so that we can increase better behavior choices from some of our students in the school district. So one of the questions was asking, we have a diversity council, we just provided an update on that in my weekly update on Monday. Can we provide an update on the work? So I wanted to share with you, I kind of use this graphic most times I do this presentation, truly getting to understand our student population in these 6 different areas. So we're almost 5,700 students in our district. When we take a look at our students. We have 231 students that are learning English as a second language. This means that about 4% of our students come to our school district either knowing no English or are not proficient in English that need support, and those students speak 26 different languages. We still have students, 287 of our students, that are receiving their education completely online. As we take a look at our gifted learners, we have almost 1,000 students in our district that are identified as gifted. Now, I want to be clear with this. We talked about this. Lauren did a presentation at a board meeting, our gifted coordinator recently, that this is not Strongsville City Schools self-identifying kids as gifted. There are specific criteria set by the state that sets a standard that if students achieve at this level, then they're identified as gifted. So it's phenomenal to see that we have 17% of our students in our district that are identified as gifted and are either receiving gifted services in our elementary schools in grades 3 through 5 or through our honors or AP classes at the middle school and high school. We have roughly 10 to 11% of our students that are receiving special education services and supports, as well as over 650 students that are considered students that are economically disadvantaged that are on our free and reduced lunch program. So I bring that up because when we talk about the work that we're talking about for the Diversity Council, sometimes there's a narrative that we want to make the Diversity Council work about race or about critical race theory. Race is a piece of what we're working on in ethnicity, but it's not the only piece. And as I've said multiple times, critical race theory is not something that's happening in our school districts. And we're not using other things like social emotional learning or mental health supports to sneak in critical race theory. We are here to support every single one of these 5,669 kids so that they feel valued and accepted and heard for who they are. And if you want to look at the research that supports this, the research that supports this is we don't start with where kids are with math and where kids are with science. We start with, do kids feel that they belong to our classroom? Do kids feel that they belong to our school system, that they belong to a peer group and our network of caring adults? Because if they don't, math, science, social studies, and arts is not going to get to the level where we need it to get. And so the focus of our Diversity Council is how do we support every one of these students in their unique pathways and their unique experiences so that they feel as a valued member of our school organization. And we're doing that right now through our strategic planning work. So as I shared in my update last time, we spent yesterday, in this month and yesterday with the Diversity Council, saying what is our vision for the future? If we come back 5 years from now, what are some enhancements that we want to see in our school district that support all students? Students of different races, ethnicities, religions, financial status, whatever the definition of diversity may be, we want to support those students. And so we want this to be transparent work. Any community member, any parent is welcome to attend any of our meetings and have a voice in the process. So we need that. Our school districts are representative of our community, and I invite all of our parents and community members that are interested in this work to participate in the third Tuesday of every month in our Diversity Council work. Finally, the question that was asked, hey, the district is in a solid financial position. What should we expect to see moving forward in terms of increased opportunities for students? We are in a solid financial position, and the board and I right now are having a dialogue as to how we can continue to support and invest in our school district and our students with opportunities so that they can reach the pathway that they want to reach for their future. So some of the things that we're doing right now to kind of give a highlight is last year we focused on elementary extracurriculars. I talked about it briefly, but we said, hey, years ago we reduced all of our elementary extracurriculars. The kids right now just get a student council experience. What about an experience for our kids outside of school in the arts? What about in STEM? What about in intramurals or athletics or just wellness? And we created those opportunities last year. This year, we're doing a study of athletics to say how are we helping support our students in our athletic program, as well as going through what are some of the changes that we've made over the years, whether it's prior levy reductions, whether it's programs that just faded away, whether it's new initiatives that we want to put in place, but we want to be strategic about it. It would be very easy for me to recommend to the board or the board to recommend to the group to say, hey, let's bring this program back, or let's reduce this fee. But when you don't take the time to look at the totality of where we're spending our dollars. We can be 5 years down the road and have a much different financial picture than we have right now. So we need to be patient, we need to be diligent and thoughtful, and we also need to make sure that we're thinking about what do our students need in 2022 and beyond versus what was a program we had in 2010 and do we want to bring that back. So the board is committed, I am committed to continually reviewing and analyzing what offerings we have for our students, whether it be academically, whether it be in the arts, whether it be athletically, and providing those opportunities so they can have a personalized experience to reach their goals for a successful future. So those are some of the things that we're looking at moving forward. I want to thank you for your time being here with me tonight. I appreciate your partnership, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your evening. Thank you.